Welcome to episode 174 of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. I'm your host and fellow student, Michelle Nelson, and together we'll learn the basics of home design and construction and demystify the building process so we can better understand energy-efficient design and build comfortable, quality dream homes with or without a general contractor. In last week's show, I introduced you to roof overhangs. Remember, a roof overhang is simply an extension of the eave or edge of the roof. The overhang can extend beyond the exterior walls of the house many inches or a few feet. In part one of the mini lesson, we talked about how many homeowners and house designers pay too little attention to roof overhangs because they think of them as purely aesthetic. But overhangs have several important functions. They can protect exterior doors, windows, and exterior walls from rain and snow. They can shade windows from hot summertime sun rays. And they can help keep basements and crawl spaces dry by directing rainwater away from the main structure of the house. We learned that all sides of the house can benefit from 16 to 18-inch overhangs because they'll protect the house from the elements, and that the south side of the house will see the most impact from deeper overhangs for shading. The roof overhangs for shading, remember, are usually 24 inches minimally, but more often they're 36 inches or more. I've been using the word wide to describe the overhang sizes because that's what the articles I've read used, but I think the correct dimension is actually deep. Deep is measured from front to back. Wide is technically a side-to-side measurement. The depth of overhangs is what determines how much shading they'll give. But I digress. This week, we'll go over whether we need deep roof overhangs for shading on the north, east, and west sides of the house. Plus, I'll tell you what you can do to protect your house from the sun's heat and rain if you either don't want overhangs or can't have them because of building code. Yep. Building codes in some areas don't allow for overhangs. Before we get into the mini lesson, I want to encourage you again to check out Zeeters, spelled Z-T-E-R-S. They're a waste solutions service that's a one-stop source for scheduling all your temporary job site services like portable toilets, fencing, storage units, and dumpsters. You can reserve all those services with one phone call to Zeeters, instead of making several separate calls to the dumpster company, the portable toilet guys, job site fencing company, and the storage unit place. You can just make one phone call to Zeeters. So check them out at Zeeters, ZTERS.com. I'll include their link in the show notes and in the episode notes in Apple Podcasts. All right, let's continue last week's mini lesson by talking about where we should put overhangs for shading. Okay, so on the south side for sure. But what about the north? What's your guess? Well, in the northern hemisphere, like here in North America, north-facing windows don't get much direct sun. So roof overhangs for shading are not necessary on the north side of your house. But to reiterate, you'll want to add 16 to 18-inch overhangs to protect your house from the elements. On the east and west, sunlight hits windows when the sun is rising or setting. So that's when the sun is low in the sky. And it's really challenging to control this nearly horizontal sunlight. It's especially hard to add overhangs that are deep enough to shade west-facing windows from that intense afternoon sun. So since controlling that sun and heat from the west is difficult, minimizing or eliminating west-facing windows in hot regions is essential. My house will have absolutely no west-facing windows. For any west-facing windows you do have, consider adding vertical fins, which shade the side of your window from horizontal sunlight. Alternatively, you can add exterior shutters or sunscreens that cover the entire glass of the window. Take a look at the show notes for examples of these shading devices. Another approach to shading west-facing windows is to design a covered porch on the west side of your house. Now, east-facing windows let in morning sun, and the heat from morning sun isn't as harsh as late afternoon sun is, but you still might want some shading on the east to eliminate glare. If you live in a very hot climate where even morning sun causes overheating, you can minimize or eliminate eastern windows too, or add vertical fins or exterior sunscreens. But for most of us, the sun's glare from the east, not its heat, is the main issue. And interior shades, shutters, drapes, and blinds can help with the glare. All right, that's it for where we should put overhangs. Now let's talk about circumstances where you won't have overhangs. There are a few circumstances where roof overhangs are not possible. For example, building code in hurricane-prone areas will usually either not allow overhangs or limit the size of overhangs. If you live in an area prone to high winds and you can have roof overhangs, let a structural engineer take a look at your plans to make sure the overhang design will resist wind uplift. In most cases, you don't want to go with overhangs that are too deep, since the larger the roof overhang, the more easily wind can lift and damage the roof. In addition, hurricane clips are often used to attach the roof to the main structure of the house, so the roof is more resistant to high winds. Hurricane clips are steel clips that help hold the roof in place, and they're far stronger than standard nails. Where else are roof overhangs not allowed? Well, I've read that building code in areas at risk for wildfires don't allow overhangs. I'm not exactly sure why, but I bet it has something to do with the overhangs making it easier for the fires to spread. Although there are many advantages to overhangs, deep overhangs can reduce incoming light and can minimally obstruct views out of the window. For those reasons, you probably don't want deep overhangs on smallish windows that don't let in much light. But if you think about it, small windows probably don't need deep overhangs anyway. The other common reason people want to avoid roof overhangs is aesthetic. Overhangs can have a dramatic impact on the home's appearance. If you like very clean contemporary profiles, you may not think overhangs are a good idea for your house. And I get it. I love sleek contemporary lines too. And if roof overhangs weren't so important for protecting my house from rain and heat, I probably wouldn't have overhangs. But the benefits of roof overhangs are just too great to ignore. So for me and my house, function has won over form. We're choosing practicality over style. And I've learned that overhangs, they can work with just about any style of house. And you can get a contemporary look even with overhangs. And of course, overhangs can work with traditional, transitional, Mediterranean, and many other styles of homes too. I'll give you examples in the show notes. If you are just dead set on a flat roof or a pitched roof with no overhangs, or you can't have overhangs for one reason or another, here is a list of some things beyond overhangs that you can do to protect your home from rain and sun. They would work even better in conjunction with overhangs, but they should definitely be considered if you won't have any overhangs. Oh my goodness. If I had $1 for every time I've said overhangs in the past 2 weeks, I'd be rich. Anyway, here's the list. Number 1, recess your windows and doors in thicker walls. In other words, push your windows and doors a few inches toward the interior of the house instead of positioning them toward the exterior surface of the house. This may require you to use 2x6 walls instead of standard 2x4 walls. Number 2, add a rain screen under exterior cladding. Okay, pop quiz. Do you remember what a rain screen is? I talked about them in episode 145. A rain screen is not an actual tangible screen. It's a space, an air gap under the exterior cladding. When wind-driven rain and other water or moisture get behind your brick, stone, stucco, or siding, the rain screen provides a drainage and ventilation space. It's a space that lets any water or moisture that gets behind the cladding drip down and/or evaporate. The rain screen is added to protect against water damage and rot. If you've never heard of a rain screen or need to learn more about them, take a listen to episode 145. Number 3, add covered porches, balconies, and pergolas to help protect exterior walls and windows from sun and rain. Number 4, have permanent or retractable awnings installed. Sometimes awnings are easier to add from a style or structural perspective than overhangs, and retractable awnings can be brought in during high winds and storms. And when they're retracted, these awnings have a very minimalistic profile for those who want an ultra-sleek exterior. Number 5, add gutters, roof drains, and scuppers. Remember last week's pro term? This is especially important if you aren't using overhangs. Scuppers and roof drains are the solutions for draining and diverting rainwater when you want a flat roof. Gutters, roof drains, and scuppers can help move water away from walls and your foundation when overhangs aren't being used. Number 6, for 2-story houses, you can cantilever the second floor windows and walls 16 inches or more. That will help shield walls beneath the cantilever from sun and rain. Number 7, pay extra for windows with the appropriate solar heat gain coefficient for your area. If you live in a hot, sunny climate and don't want deep overhangs for shading, go for windows with a very low solar heat gain coefficient. Request at least Energy Star standards for your area. The solar heat gain coefficient represents the percent of the sun's heat that can pass through the window. The number ranges from 0 to 1. The lower the number, the more heat will be blocked. Be aware of the difference between the glazing-only solar heat gain coefficient and the whole window solar heat gain coefficient. The whole window solar heat gain coefficient is what we're looking for. It takes into account the glazing of the window panes and the window frame material itself. I've tried to find out whether overhangs or high-performance windows with a low solar heat gain coefficient made the most difference in making a house more comfortable and energy efficient. I came to no solid conclusion. Some resources cited studies that said overhangs provide better protection from heat. Other sites said high-performance windows were more effective. The bottom line is, it's ideal to have both overhangs and good windows. But if you live where summers are hot and you don't want or can't have overhangs, you really need windows with a low solar heat gain coefficient to keep your house from overheating. Otherwise, you'll be living in a brand new, beautiful house that's uncomfortably hot in the summer. A final word. Don't expect interior shading devices like blinds or shades to reduce heat like exterior devices will. Once the sun comes through the window, heat has entered the house too. And at that point, all you can do is manage that heat with air conditioning and fans. The most effective way to guard against solar heat gain is to stop the heat before it enters the house. Before we go, let's do a couple of quiz questions so you can review and test yourself on some of the key points from the lesson. Although there's no true standard size for overhangs, overhangs for protection from the elements should ideally be 16 to 18 inches. And overhangs for shading should be 24 inches minimally, but preferably 36 inches or more. The answer is true. There's a software tool that's used to help you determine the best size of your roof overhang, and that's specific for your area. But as a general rule, shoot for overhangs no smaller than 16 inches deep. Number 2, roof overhangs are most effective for shading on A, north-facing windows, B, south-facing windows, C, east-facing windows, or D, west-facing windows. The answer is B, south-facing windows. 16 to 18-inch roof overhangs are a good idea on all sides of the house for protecting the house against rain. But for shading, Deeper overhangs measuring 36 inches or more are most effective on the south-facing windows. North-facing windows don't need shading at all. Now, can you remember about the shading on the east and the west-facing windows? Well, east and west-facing windows are best shaded with vertical fins or exterior screens or shutters because overhangs don't do a great job at blocking that horizontal sun that comes into east and west-facing windows. The hot afternoon sun that comes in west-facing windows is particularly problematic, especially in warmer climates. So elimination of most or all of those west-facing windows is ideal. Well, that's all I have for you this week. I hope you learned as much as I did, and I hope you'll join me again next time for another episode of Build Your House Yourself University by HiU. Please remember that the purpose of this podcast is simply to educate and inform. It's not a substitute for professional advice. The information that you hear is based only on the opinions, research, and experiences of my guests and myself. That information might be incomplete, it's subject to change, and it may not apply to your project. In addition, building codes and requirements vary from region to region, so always consult a professional about specific recommendations for your home.